long COVID lockdown, though Dr. Bharat could not be physically present in Lucknow, but he has been graceful to give a presentation right from UK on ADHD. Dr. Rahul does not need any introduction to Lucknowites. He is a very well-known figure in Lucknow, pediatricians of Lucknow. He is working in UK and he has got a center here in Bhanti Nagar with the name The Genius Lane. He is primarily working on child neurology, and he is this center has got a sort of comprehensive center in terms of rehabilitation and diagnosis of neurologically disabled children. So, without going further into the details of anything, I would straight away request Dr. Rahul to start his presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Ajay, and thank you all. So we'll talk about assessment of a hyperactive child. So I was asked to talk about hyperactive child. So we'll talk about assessment of hyperactive child. Just a bit about me. So obviously I'm from Lucknow, and I really enjoy living in Lucknow and doing what I'm doing in Lucknow. My family is in the UK. My son is here, so I have to be in the UK as well. So last 1 year I've been stuck in the UK with COVID. So I took up a lead consultant job in Royal Cornwall Hospital, and I look after children with complex neurological problems and epilepsy here. So I designed a digital early intervention program. So the whole program is automated and digital, for which I have just received an award for NHS Clinical Entrepreneur 2 days back, which I can use as a title. My training was in Cambridge, and and I enjoy working with children with neurological problems. So what is the aim of the talk today? So I think we should try and define hyperactivity. That what is hyperactivity for people, and what are we calling hyperactivity, and how is it a problem for parents, and how as a doctor we can do a 2-minute quick assessment for it, and what treatment should we go for, and what treatment is available, and what we should do is best for the child. So I'll just try and cover these 4 things in a very quick presentation, and then we can have a chat about any case you want to discuss or anything specific you want to ask me. So very important, all of my work stems from that the human baby is the most disabled of all species. So if you have a dog or if you have a cow, you will see they'll start walking and talking in a few days' time. But a human baby, when it is born, takes about 1 year to start walking, and maybe up to 2 years or 3 years to start talking properly. So it is really important to understand what's happening in the brain at that time. So if we all know the embryology, and we know that the brain works in a way that the neurons are made up and then they migrate. So neural migration is a really important process which starts from 6 months in utero and carries on up to one year to 18 months. And that a lot of the problem we see in early years is due to improper neural migration or delayed migration. So this is a very important time for the child, and the first 6 years the brain is developing. So I think the video is trying to showed the importance of environment, because evolution has made humans in a way that we are evolving. So instead of looking at it just now, if you look at 100 years, 200 years, 1000 years, the human brain is actually evolving, and based on the environment we give to the child, these neural migrations and these processes in the brain can be modified. And that is the basis of my work, because my work is more about providing the right environment to the child and what changes it brings with artificial intelligence built in. And that's what we're doing in Lucknow. So again, this is again confirmed on MR spectroscopy, and we know that there is a big role of genetics and environment on the developing brain. One very peculiar and important thing is that the feelings and emotions, they impact the development. So how the child is feeling um, is also a barrier, and it is also what defines a child. And this is very important in humans. There are lots of experiments done which confirms it. So for example, let's talk about this term called adaptation behavior. This is a new thing which is coming, and you will hear more and more about it. And there is something also called developmental trauma and adaptation behavior. You might not have heard a lot about in practice in Lucknow yet, but we are using a lot of this in UK. So the basis of it is, so if you see a child here, so if you look at the left leg is a bit bent. So if you have a child with a mild hemiplegia, you will see that the children like to be praised. All children like to be praised, and they would rarely ask for help. Um, because they don't ask for help, they will struggle to communicate how they feel. So this child, if you look, they will walk around with a bent leg, and in a few years' time, will have a bent spine. So the adaptation behavior, if you look at the child, if you look at this child, so this child will come out as happy. This child will not try and show there's a problem in the walking. And the parents are happy that the child is walking. As a clinician, our role is to understand, okay, why is the leg bent? Do we need to do anything? Does this child need splint? Do we need to make sure the child slow down so that the spine is not affected? So all of these comes in our assessment, looking at how the child is adapting and looking at how the child is feeling. And this is a very important basis for talking about hyperactive child. Say, oh, the child is hyperactive. So before I go into this, let's make it a bit interactive. So I will minimize my screen and I will ask you your expertise on how do you see hyperactivity in children. So anyone would like to describe what and how they see hyperactivity in children? How do you say it?
Actually, hyperactivity is defined, any child defined as hyperactive if he is more than 6 years and his activity is affecting his day-to-day uh, day-to-day activity of the child, like reading and all things. He is not able to concentrate at his study and work. Only then we can say.
Yeah. So, I mean, in your busy clinic, if you just look at 6 things, then we can assess hyperactivity. And it's important to remember that not all hyperactivity is ADHD and will not respond to ADHD medication. So what I look for hyperactivity is it all the time when the child is awake, and is it in all different environments? So if you look at the child, if you give them the phone, they will sit and they will watch the phone, the video or whatever the games. They're quiet. Otherwise, they are hyperactive. They are here and there and touching things. So is it only in your clinic room? Is it also at school? Is it also at home? So it's important to mark that where exactly is hyperactivity present. And the second thing to just note down is the developmental milestones achieved. For example, did the child walked by 18 months? Was the child talking between 2 to 3 years? How is the child talking now? It's important to get that down just to make sure that this is not a child with global developmental delay or a child with intellectual disability. And then always ask about learning problems, because is this child struggling to read, write, do their maths, and when it started? So suppose somebody saying that he's hyperactive from the age of 1 or from the age of 2. So that's a really important thing to note down, to say, okay, so the hyperactivity started early. And does it affect their sleeping? Because sometimes if we just sort the sleeping out, the daytime behavior improves. So with sleeping, you want to find out 2 things. Number one, how long is the child taking to go to sleep after going to bed? So if the child is going to bed and not able to sleep for more than 1 hour, that's a problem. And the second thing is, how often is the child waking up at night? And is the child waking up quite early, like 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning, and just not getting enough sleep? So we all know how much children need to sleep. So the duration is between 9 to 10 hours, and adults between 7 to 8 hours. Little babies. So I can give a chart of the sleep duration. So as a pediatrician, these are simple things that you can quickly measure to say, is the child sleeping well? Does the child has a learning problem? When does this hyperactivity started? What environment it is happening? And does it affect the behavior of the child? So when I say behavior, is the child hitting people? Is the child breaking things? Does the child have aggression and disruptive behavior? So if you just make a note of these things, I will tell you how you can reach a diagnosis. So ADHD, we all know, it is a frontal lobe problem. And what is happening is that, like, there is a pathway of gross motor development, like neck control, number one, number two, sitting, number three, walking, then running, jumping, hopping. So there's an order of gross motor. Likewise, there is an order by which children play, imagine, and inhibition happens. So what is the meaning of that? So basically, if you have a child, if you see around 2 years of age, 3 years of age, they like to do a lot of imaginative pretend play. So they will play with toys, imagining that it is real. They will think themselves as superheroes, and they like to play with toys like that. So there is a blur between what is real and what is not real. Now that blur generally goes away by 6 years of age, and you kind of realize that, okay, this is real, this is not real. And when that blur happens, once that inhibition effect happens, that generally happens from frontal lobe problems, then children tend to be more tend to come out as less hyperactive, tend to come out as doing things which are more appropriate for their age. So there's a lot of work done about inhibition and play. So generally, it is normal for children to have less inhibition and have a lot of pretend play, a lot of imagination between the age of 2 to 6. So it's really important to kind of assess that is the play of the child appropriate? Is the imagination of the child appropriate? What should I encourage? What should I not encourage? And differentiation between fact and fiction. So all of this automatically is programmed in the brain of the child. And some children, that doesn't happen. And that doesn't happen even until adulthood. So when that doesn't happen, that's the big problem. So the problem is development of the inhibition and clarity between fact and fiction and how things work in real world. So ADHD children generally should not be diagnosed before the age of 6 because the brain has not developed yet. And even if you give medicine, it is only going to slow the children down. And we will talk about short-term and long-term goals in these children. So that's ADHD. But if there's one take-home message from this, my take-home message will be hyperactivity does not mean ADHD. It should be assessed in a way to look at the bigger picture, to see what's happening there. So if you do, let's look at our 6 points. So if you do this, so suppose our development is normal. So the child is walking okay, talking okay. So if the development is normal and the child has got educational problems, means reading problem, writing problem, plus a behavior problem. So generally children, if they have educational problem, behavior problem, and sleep problem, then think of dyslexia. It is really common. So what behavior will you get with dyslexia? These children are forgetful. They are in their own little world. You tell them something and then you ask them, say, bhul gaye, yaad nahi tha. They have short attention span. So anything they are doing, they will do this and they will also do that and they will also do this. And slowly they lose confidence. So their biggest problem is they lose confidence and they adapt it by showing that they are overconfident. So they will do things that they can because their development is normal. They are good in certain things. So they will do things that they can, but in a way not try new things. And they struggle to sleep as well. So if we diagnose them as hyperactivity and ADHD, and even if we give medicine without addressing their educational and their low confidence issue, later on they will develop to be depressed, they will struggle in their education, and it will be a complete loss to their family and to the society because they could be bright people. So dyslexia is important to remember. Very easy. Normal development, problem with education, behavior, and sleep. And if you ask behavior, they will say only one thing. Parents will say only one thing कि बहुत जिद्दी है, बात नहीं सुनता. That's it. So you always think about these four things, and if it is like that, think about dyslexia. Then there are some children in India. Generally, we don't let children do things, but if you let them do things like whether they are able to do their buttons, whether they are able to do their laces, whether they are riding a cycle without stabilizers, catching a ball. So as long as they are studying, we say everything is fine. But these are other coordination issues, and they can have problem with their handwriting or eating with cutleries. Fine motor skills, important. Coordination is important. So sometimes they can have coordination issue with quite significant attention span issues, and behavior, more again a defensive, low resilience behavior. Then we should think about developmental coordination disorder. And again, I've written the age when it should be assessed. It's really easy to diagnose, really easy to treat. And these children should have a really good quality of life. Dyslexia and developmental coordination, if we diagnose them, then they will have a really good quality of life. And half the time they're not diagnosed or diagnosed incorrectly, or they're given medicine incorrectly. So really important to remember. And then autism. So autism, we all know how it looks, but I will describe them as they are in a bubble. They are isolated, happy people. They don't want to communicate. They don't want to talk. If you go in the bubble, they get anxious. And they also present with speech problems and social interaction. But remember that all of these problems, it progress. So even if their speech comes, later on they will have more anxiety and obsessive behavior. So it is really important that what you're doing in the early years should have some benefit later on. So the early years is important. So even if you treat hyperactivity in these children, so what is happening, what I don't like about, I recently saw a child from Banaras who was seen in BHU only last week. I'm doing video consultations, and he was on risperidone and antidepressant. He was only 2 years old for hyperactivity. So it's really important to understand what are we trying to treat and what are the long-term effects of these medicines on the brain. So again, autism children can present with hyperactivity, and not because the mechanism is of them being hyperactive is different. That's why the medication don't work, and just slowing them down is actually not doing them any favors. And sometimes children could be hyperactive from an early age. So we can say there are sensory issues. So they can have problem with their sleep, behavior, brushing, hair cutting, nail cutting. These are not major issues. And there are people who will suggest massage and occupational therapy and stuff like that. But there's lots of easy information available. So in your clinic, you can just download like a little leaflet from internet and say, okay, if these things are happening, the parents can do this, and they just get sorted. So always look at the development. If development is normal, then education and behavior. So this is something that you can kind of work your way through. Then there are children with global developmental delay or intellectual disability. Now, remember, if you have a 1-year-old who is able to walk, what will they do? If they're able to walk, they will go around, they will touch things, they will have less understanding about things. So when they are touching things with less understanding, they are functioning appropriate for their age. So like you have children with global developmental delay or intellectual disability, even if they are 7 or 8, sometimes they are functioning like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. So they might come as hyperactive, but that's not ADHD. And the same thing happens with autism as well. Their understanding is so low that they're just not connected. So their behavior comes out as hyperactive. So treating that like an ADHD child is not going to lead us into any long-term benefit. So yeah, so this development delay, think about these. Generally, don't go and treat ADHD. Try and look at the child as a whole. So medicine, yeah, I have seen some role of medicine when it is pure ADHD, but when it is mixed, the role is debatable. So what we want is to understand what is actually causing the problem. Is it a frontal lobe problem? Is it a problem of the child is behind, that's why? Or is it something else like dyslexia and the child is a bit hyperactive? Or is trying to avoid things, or the child has got just short attention span? That can be easily sorted. There's no need for going on a long-term medication for that. So it's important to understand what is causing the problem, what are the short-term benefits that we can achieve. So like giving a lot of people, medicine people come to me and say, can you give this vitamin, or can you give like this medicine? I don't, there is no literature to say that it makes a difference. So why do I don't do it? Because suppose there is a medicine which is on the serotonin inhibitor. So in the brain, there are lots of places where there are serotonin inhibitors. So unless the problem is because there is more serotonin, how can a serotonin inhibitor sort that problem? So if you're giving a medicine, if we know what is the mechanism of the medicine action, and the medicine is going to work on the whole of the brain, so we give a medicine to the child and we see some effect in their behavior, so they are less hyperactive. But what is the long-term result we are causing, and are we causing more harm than benefit for these children? So these are all kind of work which is progressing, and what you need as a pediatrician is to say, okay, what do I think is my diagnosis and what is the best place for this child, because I'm not going to give any medication which can cause a potential harm. So you can use my last slides to kind of work your way through about it. And our website is brainrakshak.com, which has got patient information videos. So if a child has got potential dyslexia or a potential dyspraxia or developmental coordination or epilepsy or a lot of other informations are there. So you can ask the parents to actually visit the website so that they don't start a medication which can actually affect the brain in a way which we don't want. And it's really important to get diagnosis right and have a pathway to say, okay, where are we going in the pathway and what are the long-term outcomes we can achieve. So we are trying to do all of that through this website, brainrakshak.com. It also has e-learning for pediatricians. So if there's any doctor who wants to do some e-learning, all of that is available, is free, and I'll be very happy to initiate that. You just need to go on the website and do that. Now, last slide. What is this slide saying? So generally, children who have neurodevelopmental problems, it's a really long journey for them and the child. And sometimes few years pass in denial. They say, okay, theek ho jayega. Yeah, they are looking for magical cure. So it's about acceptance ki haan, what is the problem? What are their strengths and weakness? Why that child has a problem. So diagnosis should actually explain why the child has got a problem. And does the presenting problem address, even like in autism, the presenting problem is speech delay, but that changes with time. So if you see an older person with autism, they are more socially isolated, they're more obsessed, they're more anxious. So is there something that we can do to reduce that? So I think half the time what we are doing is we are trying to sort the problems that we are seeing, and the program should be that we are actually looking at the bigger picture and sorting out what's going to come, as well as addressing what you can do at that time. If unchecked, these problems are like the head of the mushroom. So slowly it grows and becomes a big head, and becomes really costly and less effective to treat the head. So that's why early intervention is the key, identification is the key, and the pediatricians are the main people who have to do this. So yeah, I have a few more things to say, but I'll stop here and we can take any questions.
Dr. Rahul, first of all, I would like that you present the video again with the audio so that whatever is there, we can also be benefited with that. Many of the people have joined it.
Okay, let me try. Let me try.
Okay.
So was there any question, or was there something that you can think you will change in the practice, or anything that you would like to ask?
So should we not treat with
Dr. Rahul,
the medical?
kindly explain again.
Sorry.
Ajay sir, are you asking any question?
Yeah, I'm asking that in a nutshell, if there is a hyperactivity in the child and the child is not aging 6 years of age, we should avoid giving ADHD medicine, or in certain situations, these medicines can be used. If at all we can use, what could be those medicines?
So I think it's really important to not give medication without understanding what we are treating. And just treating hyperactivity in the long run is not going to help the child. So as a pediatrician, we should have a broader picture. So look at the development, look at what other problems they are having, look at when the problem started, and it's about having a structure around the child so the child knows where the child is going. So it's all about the structure and environmental modification. And the medicine that we are giving, so if you look at methylphenidate or risperidone and stuff, so if you look at the side effect profile of these medication, and if you look at some children where you've given those medication and 5 years down the line, where are they? Without understanding that whether what is the real diagnosis or underlying cause, I don't think there is any long-term benefit that we get from there.
Even tamoxifen is being used very frequently. So should that also be avoided in all such cases?
Absolutely, without understanding what we are treating. So I know that even in AIIMS and even some of the big centers, they are giving medication, and there is a big blur between adult neurology, psychiatry, child psychology, pediatrician, and a lot of people will have their own opinion. The question you have to ask is, what are we treating? So suppose you are treating hyperactivity, you should have a preset. Say, okay, I'm treating hyperactivity, and then when you treat the medicine, look at side effects of in 3 months time and benefits. So anything that you treat, you should actually have a clear process to say, okay, what I'm trying to treat, have I managed to treat that? And if I have treated that, have I caused more problem? And then going back and forth. And that's what it is all about, rather than having that, okay, give one medicine for a very long time. So these neurodisability medications are given to a child for a very long time, and it's really important to have a pre-assessment and a post-assessment to understand whether you are achieving what you're trying to achieve in the first place. There is no medicine for these things. They are just treating symptoms. So hyperactivity is just a symptom, it's not a diagnosis. And ADHD is a diagnosis, but it has got very, very clear guidance, not less than 6 years. And the reason is very clear as well, that, because the brain development is not done yet. So it's really important to be very careful in diagnosing ADHD and treating ADHD.
So in any situation, you will not medicate the child fearing that it is going to present as ADHD in subsequent life. Below 6 years of age, would not like to treat such a child?
Yeah, I think it's, the long-term benefits are less, and also the harm to the child is more. That's my experience and personal opinion.
Okay, so should we have the carry home message that below 6 years of age, no treatment for ADHD, no medical treatment for ADHD, and we should try other measures before considering giving medicine after 6 years of age. So that should be the take-home message.
Yeah, I think before 6 years we are not diagnosing ADHD, so we can't treat it because we are not diagnosing it. Shall I go to the slide one more time?
Yeah, that would be better.
Okay, let me just tell you. Let me see if this video works. Yes. Yes. Can you hear? That is not
Stop sharing first. Stop sharing.
Yes.
बॉस ऑडियो ज्वाइन करना पड़ेगा.
Tab is not coming.
ऑडियो ज्वाइन करना पड़ेगा इसमें. गूगल मीट में ऑडियो ज्वाइन करना पड़ता है. ज्वाइन ऑडियो का ऑप्शन आएगा जो यहाँ पे स्टार्ट प्रेजेंटिंग कर रहे थे, वहां पे नीचे जो 3 डॉट्स हैं उसमें शायद आएगा.
अच्छा.
यहाँ नीचे देखिए राइट हैंड साइड में 3 डॉट्स जो हैं वहां पे आप देखो, शायद ऑडियो ज्वाइन करने का एक ऑप्शन आएगा. विद ऑडियो वो कहेगा आपसे, ज्वाइन विद ऑडियो.
Use a phone for audio?
नहीं वो नहीं.
कोई बात नहीं, मैं एक बार प्रेजेंटेशन फिर से कर देता हूँ. So that
ज्वाइन विद ऑडियो आता है राहुल, उसमें तब देन योर वीडियो साउंड विल कम.
पता नहीं आ नहीं रहा है.
So that is before starting your video.
मैं एक बार फिर से ज्वाइन कर लूँ क्या? एक बार क्रोम पे ज्वाइन कर लेता हूँ, तो हो सकता है चल जाए. मैं फिर से ज्वाइन कर लेता हूँ. ठीक है, आई एम लीविंग, आई विल जॉइन अदर. हाँ,
इसमें कोई ऑप्शन है ज्वाइन विथ ऑडियो क्या? अनुराग सर,
Welcome, Dr. M.M. Agarwal. He has joined from Bareilly. He is my batchmate from Bareilly, Dr. M.M. Agarwal.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Thank you. Wish you a happy marriage anniversary. बहुत बधाई हो शादी की सालगिरह की.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
नहीं, आज मेरे बैचमेट संजय की एनिवर्सरी है, मैंने कहा बधाई दे दूं. बहुत बहुत बधाई. और राहुल जी को भी बहुत बधाई. राहुल जी की टॉक बहुत इंटरेक्टिव थी, बहुत अच्छी टॉक थी. राहुल जी को भी बहुत बहुत बधाई. थैंक यू.
वेलकम.
Rahul, you are muted.
थैंक यू.
क्रोम पे आ गया है. So
Dr. Pawar from Saijapur is also joined, but he has dozed off.
is it audible now?
Science tells us that the experiences we have in the first years of our lives actually affect the physical architecture of the developing brain. This means that brains aren't just born, they're also built over time based on our experiences. Just as a house needs a sturdy foundation to support the walls young children and their caregivers literally build the architecture of the developing brain. Building a sturdy foundation in the earliest years provides a good base for a lifetime of good mental function and better overall health. So just how is a solid brain foundation built and maintained in a developing child? One way is through what brain experts call serve and return interactions. Imagine a tennis match between a caregiver and a child, but instead of hitting a ball back and forth across a net, various forms of communication pass between the two, from eye contact to touch, from singing to simple games like peekaboo. These interactions, repeated throughout a young person's developing years, are the bricks that build a healthy foundation for all future development. But another kind of childhood experience shapes brain development too, and that's stress. Good kinds of stress, like meeting new people or studying for a test, are healthy for development because they prepare kids to cope with future challenges. Another kind of stress, called toxic stress, is bad for brain development. If a child is exposed to serious ongoing hardships like abuse and neglect, and he has no other caregiver in his life to provide support, the basic structures of his developing brain may be damaged. Without a sturdy foundation to properly support future development, he is at risk for a lifetime of health problems, development issues, even addiction. It's possible to fix some of the damage of toxic stress later on, but it's easier, more effective, and less expensive to build solid brain architecture in the first place. One of the things building sturdy brain architecture supports is the development of basic emotional and social skills, an important group of skills which scientists call executive function and self-regulation, can be thought of like air traffic control in the child's mental airspace. Think of a young child's brain as the control tower at a busy airport, all those planes landing and taking off, and all of the support systems on the ground simultaneously demand the controller's attention to avoid a crash. It's the same with a young child learning to pay attention, plan ahead, and remember and follow lots of rules. Like all of us, kids have to react to things happening in the world around them, while also dealing with worries, temptations, and obligations on their mind. As these demands for attention pile up, air traffic control helps a child regulate the flow of information, prioritize tasks, and above all, find ways to manage stress and avoid mental collisions along the way. Having this ability is a necessity for positive and level mental health. Developing effective air traffic control, overcoming toxic stress, and building solid brain architecture are things kids can't do on their own. And since strong societies are made up of healthy and contributing individuals, it's up to us as a community to make sure all young people have the kinds of nurturing experiences they need for positive development. To build better futures, we need to build better brains.
Thank you all. तो ये वीडियो is telling about development of executive function. तो brain में जो executive function होता है, that is really responsible for how a child is regulating themselves. So I just, in my presentation, I talked about play, imagination. All of these things can be measured, and all of these things are going in a process. So it's just saying that ADHD, other things is not enough. You want me to, shall I do the presentation one more time quickly?
Dr. Rahul, you have told what is not ADHD and when not to diagnose. So will you build it up to what is ADHD and then how to treat it? Maybe some simple things, because there are bookish definitions and guidelines there, but some simple points.
Okay, Dr. Rahul, what you can do, you can go through your presentation quickly, taking stress on the points which Utkarsh has raised.
Yeah, absolutely. So, really good question, Dr. Utkarsh Panchal. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes. Make it full screen.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. So the question is,
Yeah,
how do we diagnose ADHD? So first of all, let's talk about hyperactivity. So the first question we need to ask is the child hyperactive in all environment? For example, at school, at home, at friends. So it should be all environment. So ADHD cannot be diagnosed if the child is hyperactive just in your clinic or just with parents. If the child is also hyperactive at school, only then you can diagnose ADHD. Number two, developmental problems. So generally children with ADHD have normal development. So they will not have developmental delay. So if you look at ADHD, it talks about three main things: hyperactivity, impulsivity, and forgetfulness. So these are three things, but it doesn't say that children should have developmental delay. So if children have developmental delay, it is possible that they are functioning behind their age. So suppose the child is 8 but is functioning like a 4-year-old. So that should be measured by a developmental assessment. So often you will do an IQ test, but that will not tell you whether the child is functioning behind. So these are two different information. So what we want to know is, where is the development? Has the development developed well? And that you have got the access. You know how to do developmental assessment. So don't go for IQ testing. Do a developmental assessment to see where the child is. And if the child's development is normal, then discuss learning problems. Whether the child is having a problem with reading, writing, and math. Really simple. You can use the child to maybe read in your clinic, or maybe write something in your clinic, or maybe give a simple addition or subtraction or something like that. And you will know how the child will behave. So it will make it fun for the child as well. And when it started. So sometimes if hyperactivity starts at 1 year or 2 years or very early, then it is not really ADHD hyperactivity. It could be hyperactivity more with sensory problems. And with sensory problems, they can have other things like dyslexia or developmental coordination disorder. So you need to actually look at development and learning together. Then always look at sleep. Is the child sleeping well? How is the environment around the child? Has the child got a chaotic environment, no sleep pattern? These children will be hyperactive anyway. So we need to make sure that they have got a good sleeping pattern. And with hyperactivity, how is the behavior of the child? So is the behavior of the child disruptive? Is he breaking things? Is he aggressive and beating up people? So that is another important thing. So if you have checked these 6 things in your clinic, you will have a very good grip of actually what is happening. And you will not be in a rush to say, oh, this is ADHD, give treatment. Because that is not going to help the child or the family. And so many children with these things are often diagnosed as ADHD, something like dyslexia. So if you check about education plus behavior, so in dyslexia the behavior is avoidance behavior and sometimes getting angry very quickly and problem with sleep. So you can take a photo of it and you can use in your clinic to say, okay, what else is with hyperactivity? Or the child has got fine motor coordination issues, and you can actually ask the child to write something, see how the child is holding the pen. So the child is holding the pen in a very different way, has got no posture in sitting. Think about developmental coordination disorder, easy to diagnose, easy to treat. Now, if these children who are lacking with development are given early support to address their problems, then their confidence goes up, their behavior change, and overall performance will change. And that will make a major difference 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. And our role as pediatrician is to find those children and help them and avoid any unnecessary medication. And again, with autism, a lot of the children, they are given medication saying, okay, it's autism with hyperactivity or ADHD, so they are on risperidone. And I've recently come across people are also giving antidepressant medication to 2 years old, 3 years old. Now that is not going to help the child. And these children, even if they are 5 or 6, their behavior understanding is quite low. And that's why they behave in that way and they get anxious quickly. And these children, if you give them a phone, they'll just sit quietly, they'll look at the phone all the time. So how can we say they are hyperactive and that's their main problem? So it's about looking at all their problems and understanding a diagnosis and then saying, what are we trying to treat? And with what are we going to get a change in outcome 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line? And that's a major role we have to undertake. And sometimes children have sensory issues. It's really common. Between 15 to 20% children have sensory issues, which means that 1 in 5 children that you will see will have sensory issues at an early age. And people are talking about occupational therapy, and all of those are not required. You can just print a leaflet about helping those families to say, do this, do this, do this. A lot of our Indian culture is actually based on sensory integration. And I think we knew all about it 400, 500 years back. And we had a very rich culture that has gone lost now. And we are, families are alone and segregated. And even 50 years back, we had more concrete society. So I think with that, we are seeing more of these problems, and it is seen more in the West than it is seen in India. So it's really important for us maybe to go back to the basics, maybe just doing the things right that we were doing, understanding and looking at this in a holistic way, rather than saying, oh, this is ADHD or whatever. So if the development is normal, think of these things. And if the development is delayed, then it is more like intellectual disability or global developmental delay, where think how the child is behaving. What is the main problem? Is the main problem that of the child is not performing according to age, or the main problem is just hyperactivity? So that's the way you think it. So any Dr. Utkarsh Panchal, did I answer your question?
Was partly, yes. I would say that we have ruled out ADHD with this. So would you like to put in some easy clues, because there will be at least 5-6 points in all the 3 domains which we look for ADHD. So which can quickly grab the diagnosis that maybe 6 years a child is coming with ADHD, what we can do.
So what I do is that ADHD is my diagnosis of exclusion. ADHD is my diagnosis of exclusion. I don't do it as my first diagnosis. So I always try and exclude, is it autism, is it dyslexia, is it dyspraxia, and then we go to ADHD. Obviously, the age factor is there. So once you have identified there's no learning problem, there is no developmental problem, then it's best to go to ADHD. And in all my years in Lucknow, I think 6.5 years in Lucknow, I have only diagnosed 1 ADHD. I've seen more than 3,000 children.
A diagnosis, it should always be a diagnosis of exclusion, because children with dyslexia, children with children underlying development attention deficit. So we cannot label them as ADHD to protect these children from the medicines. That will be very appropriate. Any other questions from the audience?
I had posted a question in the chat box, Dr. T.R. Yadav. The question is, how much is the duration of action of these drugs, atomoxetine or phenidate, and when they should be given in the time of day?
Nowadays,
when the child is going to school, or before school, after school, when they should be given?
what is your view about this medicine?
Sorry.
What is the period caution should be taken in advising this medicine?
Okay, so methylphenidate. If we are giving methylphenidate, it is important that we check the blood pressure of the child, and we also check. Yeah, we should do a baseline blood pressure for the child, and we should also check a baseline ECG for these children. And the weight and height is important. So one of the common side effects of methylphenidate is that appetite loss happens. So children will have difficulty in gaining weight. So if you are giving this medication, you must follow them up for 6 months, and you must check if their weight loss is happening or not, or if their weight gain is happening or not. So you must have height, weight, blood pressure. Very important, because it can also increase severe high blood pressure in some children, and it is not tolerated well in those children. So it's important. It's important to address those if you're giving this medication. So I just want to take this opportunity that I've been doing this work in Lucknow for 6 years, and I came to UK, and the early intervention program that we have developed in Lucknow is a cutting edge technology, and in the UK also we are leading it. So in the UK, this has been accepted at NHS for a trial. So it's really good news that Lucknow will be leading some of the future work that we'll be doing in the UK. So good news.
What is accepted in UK, Dr. Rahul? What program is accepted in UK?
Early intervention program. So
the one you did it Lucknow?
The one we are doing in Lucknow, our app and our software is being accepted for trial in UK, and I have got they gave me a title of NHS Clinical Entrepreneur. So I got it 2 days back. I've been awarded this. So it's really good that what we developed in Lucknow will even lead some of the work that we're doing in UK. So that's really good news.
So Dr. Rahul, what is the personality of these children suffering from ADHD if they are left untreated in the long run?
Okay, so it's, the main problem with these children is inhibition. So if you look at it, they will not know the concept of consequences. So they suppose you are sitting in the clinic, they will come and take out your glass. Or they will drink your water. So these kind of things. So if you have got a tap in your office, they will come and open the tap, and the water will flow. And so they don't understand consequences. So the first thing we need to do is, do they understand consequences? Is there a way by which we can develop higher executive function? Because you've just seen, so the word is higher executive function. If they can develop higher executive function, they don't need medicine. Medicine is only helping us to cope with their behavior. It is a management of symptom. It is not treating the actual cause, and it will not treat the actual cause. So these children, as they grow up, because they don't know inhibition, they will either have crime background, or they will do road traffic accidents, or they might fall into drugs because they are unable to accept themselves. And by falling into drugs, you kind of slow down anyway, because the treatment is drugs in the first place anyway. So it's really important to address that by understanding the actual problem. So by identifying them early, you are actually sorting a big problem that children see in the future.
Dr. Rahul, you said they are not treating the actual cause. So what is the cause?
So the actual cause is not development of higher brain function.
Okay.
So the higher executive functions should develop by the age of 6. So like I said, that the human baby is programmed to do all of that until a certain age. Like they have to go through neck control and sitting and walking. So the question is, why is the human baby doing it if other mammals are not doing it? And the same happens for higher executive function, for speech. And sometimes that is stuck at 4 years of age or 5 years of age. Like some people will get angry and say something. So they are not able to manage their feelings, not able to manage their behavior. So what we need is to identify where it is stuck and help them there, so it can slowly come to an age of 6 years and 7 years. And only after that, we should use medication with caution to say, what are we trying to treat? So in the UK, if we are giving methylphenidate, it is only given on school days, so that children can do their reading and writing well. And in the UK, there is no resource for early intervention because everything is costly. So there is no time for people to come and have 2-3 hours session, and that is not happening here. So the problem here is that everybody has to get everything at school, and doctors don't have time. They will just give medication. But that perspective is changing.
That was my question in chat box, whether it should be given in school days or before school while preparing. That is answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Rahul, you
if
told
there
that this medicine should not be used, but sometimes these children are very unmanageable by the parents. In such situation, what is your advice? Is there any non-pharmacotherapy to manage these children?
I'm sorry, I did not say that it should not be used. All I said was that we should do our assessment in a way that we understand why the child is hyperactive, come to a reasonable diagnosis. If the diagnosis is ADHD, then we should, if we are treating it, we should do it carefully and monitor the child, and we should monitor our effect, because it is not just one thing that we can give. It's about understanding why the diagnosis is most important. So if it is dyslexic child and we give methylphenidate, the outcome is going to be poor. If it is an autism child, then all of these don't work. We all know that. So it's about understanding what is the diagnosis. So yeah.
So you want to say that idiopathic hyperactivity is probably ADHD?
No, there is no described word like idiopathic hyperactivity. All I'm saying is that before you diagnose ADHD, we should have an age of 6 years of age. We should make sure that the development and learning problems are not there. We should assess what behavior it is happening. We should look at the child is sleeping and not rush to give medication, because otherwise you don't know when to stop.
If all these things are ruled out, should we start medicine a bit early?
Not bit early, because in a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, it depends what you want to achieve. So it needs a bit of counseling to say, okay, I want to see what is happening, different environment, maybe look at videos of how the child is at home. So now with the advent of everybody having a mobile phone, you have the chance to have a look at it. So remember, the diagnosis of ADHD is only done after the age of 6, and there's a reason behind it, because the brain is still developing. So if you're giving a medicine to a developmental brain, we have to be careful. Giving medicine like valproate and phenobarb and all of this, if one life is spoiled, we have to reduce it. Say, why are we giving it? What are we trying to treat?
Dr. Rahul, what is the earliest age we can recognize this ADHD?
I think sometimes you can recognize it early because sometimes you have children with sensory issues. So you can maybe see it from 2 years of age. By the time they come to 5 years of age, you will know, oh, maybe it is developmental coordination problem. So you try and help them with that, improve their confidence. I personally will only treat ADHD, even if it is ADHD, if it is affecting their school. So suppose you have a child who basically has got no learning problems. So he is processing the information. So when you do dyslexia assessment, you look at how the child is processing the information. So the child is processing the information, okay, but still not able to focus. Only then you will give it for that 4 hours, 6 hours and see if it makes a difference. So if you use the process that I have told, you will see that you will find more and more other problems and less ADHD. And not all hyperactivity is ADHD.
The problem is that during nowadays, because of the Google parents, they Google it, they get the information, they come to the doctor and ask it whether my child is having this problem or not. What should we answer it?
Okay, so I mean, it's really important that we address it directly to say, please do not Google it, or please, and then maybe when you assess the child, then you kind of say, the development is okay, the learning is okay. If the age is less than that, you want to say that if we give it medicine or if we give a diagnosis, it will be for a very long time and it might cause no good. So the patient will respect you even more to say, oh, this doctor is actually. So my feedback in India is that when you actually take the pain of not give medicine and explain to the family, you make a difference, a real difference, and lot of families appreciate that. So a lot of the families, they just need answers. Say what is the problem and what they can do. If we can provide that, then they'll be happy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other question from the audience? I think there is no other question. Then I would like to wind up this session. First of all, on the behalf of Lucknow Academy of Pediatrics, I would like to thank Dr. Rahul Bharat, who has taken his time, precious time, and attended this webinar, and he's given a very lucid talk on the ADHD, and he has made it very easy and very clear that we should not make the clear and first diagnosis of ADHD. If any children coming with hyperactivity, impulsive disorder, look the age of child and the other underlying problem like behavior problem, education problem, and coordination problem. Child is having some anxiety, underlying anxiety, isolation, and speech problem. All these things should be addressed first, and if these are absent, only then after age of 6 years, this ADHD should be diagnosed. Thank you so much, Dr. Rahul. I would like to thank Dr. Ajay sir, who has joined this, Rajiv Magan sir, and Murli Manohar Agrawal sir joined from Bareilly, and Sumit Taneja sir has also joined. Thank you so much, sir. And all the honorable members of this webinar who have spared this time and joined this webinar. Thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Rahul. So nice.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure. And thank you all.
Achha, one question.
Thank you, Dr. Rahul,
When
for
are you-
obliging us.
Thank you.
Dr. Rahul, what are
Yes.
your dates? When are you available in Lucknow?
So unfortunately, I have not been able to come back to Lucknow from March last year because there was a lockdown, and because I have an OCI, so I couldn't come back to India because my visa was stopped. And OCI means Overseas Citizen of India. So so at this moment there's a lockdown in UK until the 8th of March. So the travel is hard. I've got my tickets booked for 15th of March. I really want to come back. It's like 1 year and have some time in India, but I don't know. Maybe sometime this year. But what I'm doing is that we have video consultations and we have a full process. So the center is ongoing and we have some medical support as well. But everything is online consultation and video processing, and the whole center is made up on apps. So if a child comes in, there are people who assess the child, they put in the information that gives a profile of the child. I can actually show at some point of time how we work, how we do everything online, so that no matter where I am, I can really assess where the child is, how we are doing. It's all done on app. So all patients have app. So they have all their records and reports on their app, and all their vaccine records and everything. Although we don't do vaccine, but everything is built up in there. And there is information video. So everything, suppose they have epilepsy or something, they can look at videos. And so we are doing it like digitally, and we are helping some other doctor colleague who want to work in this field to do more.
So what are your telephone numbers? How to contact you? Telephone numbers. The same number which are in your Google site. What are your telephones here? They are the same numbers?
Same numbers.
Is your center is working in Lucknow?
Yes, in Gomti Nagar.
I see. The Genius Lane.
Genius. It's still working. The results are very good. But what we are doing is we are learning from parents. We are making a system that we can give to other places. So now we are working with Gorakhpur, Sitapur, Kanpur, and other pediatricians. So we can give our system to them, and we
Mhm.
can have the same system, the best practice replicated in small cities in India. That's
Mhm.
our kind of goal in India. But we are
Mhm.
doing the same thing in the UK as well.
Mhm.
So
Definitely.
Lucknow is going to lead what is going to happen in the UK in the next year or two. So,
Definitely.
so I'm really happy about that. It's going well.
We are very, very fortunate to have you here in Lucknow, and you are definitely doing a very nice job. So nice of you. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
sir, Magan sir. Thank you so much.
Bye.
And
Bye.
we will meet again. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.